Hello, Avila Advantage Macroeconomics students. Hope everyone is staying safe and doing well. It's week 3 for me from staying away from work and working remotely. So that's definitely been a change, and I'm sure it is for many of you too. Um, Having to take all your classes online or working remotely from home. But I do know that some people do still go to their job. They have to, probably because they're either in healthcare or they're in a profession that is needed. But this is definitely a big shock to our economy, and the long term is still not unknown. There's still a lot of optimism that if we can maybe get back to full force after, um, let's say, by the summer, if we can get the death rates down, um, we probably will be able to bounce back quickly. And the markets have been pretty positive lately about that, so that is encouraging news. Of course, if you're not working or if you haven't received a stimulus check, supposedly they're supposed to go out this coming week. Um, that could be an issue. And the question is, will the credit markets extend credit to businesses that have been closed for like 2-3 months? How do you survive for that? You're probably going to see a lot of bankruptcies come out of this, and the government having to make tough decisions about who they're going to fund and who's going to stay open. So that even goes for higher education institutions. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the long run. Because I saw the governor cut like a lot of money in the state of Missouri to public institutions. So anyway, for this week, you're going to have the brief written assignment, read chapters 15, 16, do the My Econ Lab and the forum discussion. And really, we only have 2 weeks left. So next week will be pretty light, just focus on the exam and kind of readings and wrap up with the My Econ Lab. But this week, you're going to focus on money. Money, by definition, serves the purpose of immediate exchange, store of value, and unit of account. You're going to look at broad definitions of money, like M1, which you think of that in terms of cash and checking accounts, and M2 looking at including all of M1, but CDs, referred to in the text as time deposits, and savings accounts, so it becomes less liquid. So the Fed, they focus more on those M1 and M2 measures, and right now they've literally flooded the market with money to make zero interest rates, as we talked about previous weeks, to really try to push that aggregate demand curve out and stimulate the market. So some of the things you're also going to read about this week about the idea and concept of banking. They work in what's called an asset liability model. You're going to look at some T accounts, and essentially I want you to think of it this way. Your deposits in a bank are really a liability to that bank. I mean, it's your money, so they owe that money to you. Their assets are going to be the loans that they lend out. So, and that is paid slowly back over a period of time. So a lot of their liabilities are very short term, so they can go to the bank and ask for money right now, and they have to have that available to them. So they have to really kind of figure out, what is the right mix of loans, different maturities they can have, and still have enough cash on hand to meet customers' needs. And the textbook talks about why people hold on to cash. It could be speculative, it could be precautionary, it could be transactionary. Today, though, I'd argue that most of you probably, I rarely keep cash in my wallet. It's mostly done, Apple iPay. People use credit cards. I'm a big fan of using the credit card. I just pay it off every month, and I get a kickback on it. So how we use money is much different. But I would argue that credit cards are technically not money. Yes, they give you a unit account. You get a statement. Yes, they're accepted in most places, but they're not a store of value. Really, all the bank is just giving you credit for that time period. But they can take that quickly away, and it'd be gone tomorrow. So you're also going to look at a little bit of what I call the magic of banking. This goes all the way to the time period, like the Middle Ages, and Cosimo de' Medici was kind of interesting. That time period, even lending and charging interest, which is really fundamental banking, was considered a sin. Like Dante's Inferno, fire coming down on you. You think about Jesus driving the money lenders out of the temple, so it's viewed as something bad. But we know that in banking, you have to have interest in order to make it work. There's small amounts, reasonable amounts of profits, but the magic of banking is not, think about it, you have 100 gold florins, you keep it under your mattress, it doesn't do anybody good. But if you put those 100 gold florins in a banco in Italy in that time period, and the banker says, I got 100 gold florins, I can lend that out, and now that person doesn't have to go floor. So the magic banking isn't there aren't creating more physical cash, is they're creating more loans. And you're going to read about that in the money multiplier process. It's basically 1 over reserve requirement, or whatever people decide to hold. But each time the bank, I think of it as like one bank, just keeps relending that money. That's the amount of money supply can grow. So, all right. So some other things I want to talk about, like the tools of the Federal Reserve. The 3 main tools they can use are open market operations. That's the most common one. That's what they're doing now. When they go out and they think, if I'm the Federal Reserve and you guys are the public, if I go out and I sell bonds to you, I'm taking money away. So that's what they were slowly doing before this whole crisis did. Starting to slowly raise interest rates. There's less money, it gets more expensive, interest rates go up. Okay, but if I go out and I buy those bonds from you in the open market, I'm giving you cash returns. And that's what pumps up the money supply. And that's why they've put the Fed funds rate, the rate that banks charge other banks to borrow overnight, to about 0%, because there's so much money out there right now. So, but you're going to learn a lot about in Chapter 16 about the money demand curve, why it's downward sloping. Essentially, that as interest rates decrease, there's less incentive to hold on to that money. That money demand is going to decline as we move along that axis. And the other curve you're going to see on page 353 is also to show an example of the supply curve for money shifting out. And you can also see, okay, the logic, they do it through bonds. It's an inverse relationship. But basically, what's happening is that those interest rates are going to drop when they go out and they pump more money into the economy. So they're doing that in the hopes that that's going to stimulate your spending. Go out, buy a new car, new boat, house, whatever. But really, the opinion I'm reading a lot of the financial authors out there, and the articles in CNN Money, is it's not going to really do anything, because right now people are uncertain about the future. They don't know if they're going to have a job in the next couple of months, some of the different industries. So you're going to see a big decline. In fact, you've seen like auto manufacturers slow down. Probably the housing boom is going to slow down a little bit now too. I see houses being put up all around my neighborhoods at Lee Summit. But I think you're going to see it stall out for quite a while, and you're going to see a long time before some of these neighborhoods actually complete their houses, because people just don't want to be buying a house in times of uncertainty. So last thing I want to share with you is you're going to see an equation called MV equals PQ. The idea behind this is that if velocity is constant in an economy and we're already a certain level of GDP, you think all the way back to the production possibility curve. If you just pump up the money supply, the equations would say that you have an exact increase in the price level. And that's one of the things that the Federal Reserve is concerned about, is that keeping inflation under control. They have concerns about unemployment, GDP, and growth, but one of the big ones for them is inflation. And right now, they're not worried about inflation because there's just not a lot of aggregate demand out there. And it probably won't be for a while, because so many people have stopped working. We may potentially get up to like 15% unemployment or even higher after this, but hopefully that is only temporary and not structural. If it's structural, we're going to have some major issues with our economy. You're going to see the stock market start to tank. But at least for now, most people are optimistic. So we hope by the summertime you start to see some more optimistic news about COVID-19, and that the trend is changing, all this social distancing. But the United States, we seem to still struggle with compared to the rest of the world, and it's probably part of our politics, part of our system, but it's putting people at risk. We don't seem to have it under control like other nations are doing a much better job, and we're supposed to be the world leader. So it's something we definitely need to work on. So if you have any questions, send me an email, but otherwise have a great week, and I look forward to your forum post, and we'll talk to you online. Take care.